Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. My name is Mary Jackson, and I am delighted to be your worship associate this morning. Normally, if you would like more information about FirstU, it is available at the welcome table at the back of the pews. However, while FirstU is shut down because of the COVID-19 virus, please contact us at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. I repeat, for more information, please email us at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. After this service and future services, our normal fellowship hour will be replaced by a virtual getting together. If you would like to join us for fellowship hour, please see our website, firstunitarianottawa.ca, or our weekly newsletter, the EUU, for information on how to do so. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are a part of our spiritual community. Welcome. We hope you come back soon.
Thank you, Mary. Bonjour. Good morning, everyone. I am Reverend Patricia Guthman Harash, or Pat, the minister at First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. Although the doors to our building are closed to do our part in preventing the spread of disease, we still are a vibrant congregation with open minds, spirits, and hearts. This morning I welcome you into my home, our music director Deirdre Kellerman's home, and I think Mary's home as well. Thank you for welcoming us into your home. It is a beautiful thing to think that even though we are in separate places, protecting ourselves and others by staying away from a crowd, here we are together online, listening, connecting, and soon singing. I hope this moment finds you well. A few more announcements. While the building is closed, staff are working remotely and won't regularly be in the office. From home, we are monitoring our emails during regular hours. Phone calls will be checked less regularly, so really, emails are the fastest way to communicate. As we won't be seeing each other in person, it is more important than ever to be signed up for our weekly email newsletter, the EUU. Check our Facebook page and our web page for notices and updates. The EUU has a religious exploration lesson from Neo every week, our RE director, community announcements, and ways to help during these uncertain times. We now have a subscription to Zoom teleconferencing, and many of our groups are starting to use Zoom to connect. Go to our website and check out our calendar. You will see that much is going on. Besides committees and groups continuing to meet using Zoom, we have a check-in for youth this afternoon, trainings on Zoom, and a Thursday sing-along with Deirdre. You can find out more about chalice groups, you could say deep sharing circles, that will be starting up, and the latest information from the board. Find out about how we are marking the 50th anniversary of Earth Day and the formation of new Sunday morning forums. So do check out what's going on in the EUU, Facebook, and our website. To schedule a Zoom conference, please email Jen, our operations manager, at omsandmr@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you are having any trouble connecting with Zoom, please let us know and we will help you figure it out. May it just be physical distancing, not social distancing during this time. May we remain connected by phone and through every device and means we know how through the electric highway.
Ancient Mother, I hear you calling.
Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I hear your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I hear your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. As we are remembering the 50th anniversary of Earth Day all week, I read these words from John O'Donoghue's poem, In Praise of the Earth, for our chalice lighting. Let us thank the earth that offers ground for home and holds our feet firm to walk in space open to infinite galaxies. Let us salute the silence and certainty of mountains, their sublime stillness, their dream-filled hearts, the wonder of a garden, trusting the first warmth of spring, until its black infinity of cells becomes charged with dream. Then the silent, slow nurture of the seed's self, coaxing it to trust this act of death. Let us ask forgiveness of the earth for all our sins against her, for our violence and poisoning of her beauty. Let us remember within us the ancient clay, holding the memory of seasons, the passion of wind, the fluency of water, the warmth of fire, the quiver touch of the sun, and shadowed sureness of the moon, that we may awaken to live to the full the dream of the earth, who chose us to emerge in mind, spirit, and light. Let us sing the Chalice Song. Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of how we'd like to live each day with love and truth helping lead the way. Now is the time for a story for all ages. And since it's Earth Day this week, I was wondering about a term. Have you ever heard of someone being called a tree hugger before? Someone who is such a lover of nature that they hug trees. My story today is about who really the first tree huggers we know of, who they were hundreds of years ago in India. Let us go back in time. What do the forests bear? Soil, water, and pure air. Those were the words that the girls chanted as they wandered through the forest. It was a bright winter day long ago, and the girls belonged to the Bishnoi, people from India. I think Bishnoi might be correct. Their gentle and magical leader, Guru Jambeshwar, laid down 29 principles by which the people lived. And among their most important beliefs was this, that animals and trees were sacred. So in the world of the Bishnoi, animals grazed peacefully. Every tree was tended with love and care, and none were ever destroyed. The people used only the parts of the trees that they needed to build their humble homes, but they never chopped down a tree, so the forest was thick and fragrant. They just picked up what fell from the trees. Perhaps more than all the people of her village, Amrita Devi loved the trees. From the time she was young, she would wake each morning and walk into the forest. There she would visit one special tree, the Kajiri tree, a thorny evergreen with slender branches and conical thorns, thorns like cones. And in springtime, it bloomed with tiny yellow flowers. And in summer, it offered shade. And it could get really hot there. As she grew older, Amrita remained devoted to the trees. And when she married, she still visited that very special Kajiri tree. When her daughters were born, she introduced each one of them to the lessons she had learned as a child. And so Asu, Ratni, and Bagubai grew to love and admire the trees as much as their mother. Often they would walk into the forest and their mother would sing, "What do the forests bear?" And the girls sang in response, "Soil, water, and pure air." One day, Maharaja Abhay Singh, ruler of the kingdom of Jodhpur, sent his men to cut down the Kajiri trees to use for building his new palace. For the Kajiri bark was known to be the finest in all the land. And so the men marched into the forest of Amrita's village and began to chop down trees. Amrita heard the sound of crashing trees, and at once she gathered her daughters and as many of the villagers as she could find, and together they ran to the forest. "Stop," they cried. "Do not destroy our trees." But the soldiers kept chopping. And so Amrita led her people to surround the trees, to circle them, to hold their friends, the trees. If the soldiers wished to chop down trees, they would have to kill the people. Not sure what to do, the soldiers returned to their leader to tell him what had happened. And when the Maharaja heard, he yelled, "What do you mean? Those are my trees. This is my kingdom, and I shall do with them as I wish." He gathered more soldiers, and together they headed toward the village. By now, Amrita had spread the word, and soon each tree was guarded by a man, a woman, or a child of the village. Each person hugged a tree. "We'll never let them destroy our forest," Amrita declared, and the people agreed. When the Maharaja saw the scene, he grew angrier and told his soldiers to kill the people. It was horrible. People were killed, houses destroyed, empty fields were devastated. But the people would not give up. The Maharaja eventually had to stop the soldiers and let the people have their village and their trees. The villagers were overjoyed, and the spot where Amrita's tree grew became a sacred place, a place no one ever forgot. As we think of Earth Day this week, as we celebrate our earth and dream of what could be and protect the earth, act so we can protect the earth, let us remember the spirit of people like Amrita, who loved the earth so and all that lives on her lands and in the waters. Now let us sing our first hymn, a new song called "Sing It for the Earth in Need." Deirdre, could you teach us this song?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Deirdre Kellerman, and I am the music director at First Unitarian Ottawa. This morning, our first song is not out of our hymnals. It's a song called Sing It for the Earth in Need. It's new to us. So as with any new song, I invite you to just listen to it once before you join in. I'm going to sing it through a number of times so you have lots of opportunity to get used to the melody before you join in. Enjoy. This is Sing It for the Earth in Need.
This is the time in the service when we are drawn closer to the heart of love at our center. May we hold in our hearts all those who have suffered loss and sickness during this time of coronavirus, those who are feeling fear and anxiety and loneliness, those who are most vulnerable. Let us hold all in need in our hearts and minds. May all in need experience compassion, grace and mercy, food and shelter. In the words of Reverend Gary Kowalski, fill us then with reverence and compassion for all who are our kin, cloud and sun, sibling and cousin, the multitude of beings who share this improbable and never to be repeated moment. Today I place stones in the water that some of you have asked me to place for those you are thinking of, both for joys and concerns. A stone with sympathy for all those who have not been able to say goodbye to their loved ones as they perish from COVID-19. And a stone for those waiting to say goodbye to their loved ones because they needed to put off memorials and celebrations of life and weddings also, but that's not a time of goodbye, is it? So for all of those who had to wait to say goodbye in this time of pandemic. And 2 stones for all of the essential workers globally, and also an additional concern for their families of the ones who have been lost in their fight against the virus. 2 stones, one for Jill Swan and her family because her father died recently, and a stone to honor her father. Jill, you are in our hearts. And a stone of joy for all those who battled COVID-19, who had the disease and survived. We're so glad you're here. And for your families. One last stone for all the world, for all the suffering, but also for the joys. For yes, even babies come into this world. Still, there's no keeping them back. We recognize there is death, but we also recognize that love continues on in our memories and with each new life that comes into this world. May we hold all these joys and sorrows of this gathered community and the world into our hearts and join together in a moment of silence. Let us be still together.
The following reading is a Declaration of Interdependence that was written for the 1992 UN Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro and has been the basis of many declarations and documents around the world since its creation. The first part. This we know. We are the earth through the plants and animals that nourish us. We are the rains and the oceans that flow through our veins. We are the breath of the forests of the land and the plants of the sea. We are human animals, related to all other life as descendants of the firstborn cell. We share with these kin a common history written in our genes. We share a common present filled with uncertainty, and we share a common future as yet untold. We humans are but one of 30 million species weaving the thin layer of life enveloping the world. The stability of communities of living things depends upon this diversity. Linked in that web, we are interconnected, using, cleansing, sharing, and replenishing the fundamental elements of life. Our home, planet Earth, is finite. All life shares its resources and the energy from the sun, and therefore has limits to growth. For the first time, we have touched those limits. When we compromise the air, the water, the soil, and the variety of life, we steal from the endless future to serve the fleeting present. This we believe. Humans have become so numerous and our tools so powerful that we have driven fellow creatures to extinction, dammed the great rivers, torn down ancient forests, poisoned the earth, rain, and wind, and ripped holes in the sky. Our science has brought pain as well as joy. Our comfort is paid for by the suffering of millions. We are learning from our mistakes. We are mourning our vanished kin, and we now build a new politics of hope. We respect and uphold the absolute need for clean air, water, and soil. We see that economic activities that benefit the few while shrinking the inheritance of many are wrong. And since environmental degradation erodes biological capital forever, full ecological and social costs must enter all equations of development. We are one brief generation in the long march of time. The future is not ours to erase. So where knowledge is limited, we will remember all those who will walk after us and err on the side of caution. Finally, this we resolve. All this that we know and believe must now become the foundation of the way we live. At this turning point in our relationship with Earth, we work for an evolution. From dominance to partnership, from fragmentation to connection, from insecurity to interdependence.
The Declaration of Interdependence that Mary just read sounds pretty Unitarian, yes? This morning, I just want to say, I'll just say this, it needn't be COVID-19 all the time, pandemic all the time, yes? This morning, let us talk about the earth. As the declaration begins, we are the earth through the plants and animals that nourish us. Do you feel this oneness in your bones with the earth, your feet rooted in the earth, the winds and your breath intermingled? So much so that you want to hug trees like Amrita? What are the most precious memories you have of nature? I remember once on a walk in the woods near, I think it was Lake Superior, there was a river that streamed into the forest from Lake Superior. And all of a sudden, there was a family of otters swimming around in the river, knowing that they had been endangered at one point. Here they were, this family so playful. It was as if they had no fear and were entertaining me, right? I remember the first time I heard the call of a great blue heron, and I thought for sure I knew what dinosaurs sounded like. Yes, birds must be related to dinosaurs after I heard the great heron's call. How ancient a sound and otherworldly. I remember seeing a small avalanche in the distance while walking up a trail in the Grand Tetons. And when exhausted, reaching the top of the mountain, turning around, I saw such a vast and spectacular view of the valley. I felt like I was almost going to fall off the top, off the edge, because it was so stunning. I remember canoeing in the middle of a small lake when the sun was beginning to set, and it seemed like you could almost see a line drawn at the dome of the sky, where on one half of the lake was bright colors streaming across the skies, that light of the fading sun, and half of the lake was dark, under a dark dome with dots of stars and a slip of the moon. How many times has Mother Earth just blown you away? I imagine, like me, you so love the earth. Again from the Declaration, we are the rains and the oceans that flow through our veins. Yet, Barbara Deming in her poem, Spirit of Love, cries, "The earth is perishing. Save the earth." Although we have known that it's been happening for quite a while, We are finally seeing the signs that perhaps the earth has a limit. Perhaps we can't continue to consume, and dump toxins into the air and water and expand our human population and pave paradise without end. Mother Earth is starting to let us know in less and less subtle ways that she's about had it with our thoughtless, overindulgent, and reckless ways. Extreme weather here, uncontrollable fires there. I think she's mad. It is fascinating to me that the human imagination has seemed to entertain notions of a great cataclysmic end since the beginning of storytelling, either caused by natural disasters like great floods or a wrathful God. Yet only in history have we begun to consider, only in our recent history have we begun to consider the real possibility of causing our own demise through our recklessness. Richard Leakey and Roger Lewin noted that humans are poised to become the greatest catastrophic agent since a giant asteroid collided with the Earth 65 million years ago, wiping out half the world's species in a geological instant. But like the declaration Mary read, deep down we know we are the breath of the forests of the land and the plants of the sea. I think we all have a notion of what we could do in our individual lives to help care for the earth, and perhaps we are already doing some of it, recycling, trying to use less fossil fuel, reduce our energy consumption, buy more locally and organically, maybe plant our own gardens, exercise voting privileges, be activists, give to ecologically minded charities. But there is something more to this story than appreciating the beauty and fruits of the earth. There is something more to consider than composting. There is something within our very culture, our society, our upbringing, that works on and against our very spirit and soul. When we examine prehistoric ways of living, first peoples of all lands, yes, we can see there's some fear of the natural world, wild animals, and weather beyond those people's control, but also a learning of how to live within and amongst their natural setting. When was it in our human history, especially among us so-called Westerners, when we began to try to break from our relationship with nature and the rest of creation? As the Declaration noted, don't we know that we are human animals, related to all other life as descendants of the firstborn cell? We share with these kin a common history written in our genes and a common destiny. I say to you that it seems to me that the destructive ecological spiral began to spin whenever it was that we started to see ourselves as separate from and above nature or any living person, creature, or thing. Whenever someone could say, my people good, your people bad, civilization and progress good, and wildness, nature bad and must be tamed. It all started when home became heaven or something out there and not a place right here and now, where I stand on the ground and in my heart amidst a community of all. All are relation. Oftentimes, biblical traditions and their influence have been blamed for promoting attitudes that have divided peoples into chosen and not chosen, saved and not saved. Attitudes that demonize earth and nature, contributing to exploitation of and damage to other humans and the natural environment. Excuse me. Yes, that exists. That's out there. But what's in the sacred text? We find the ancient pulse of connectedness to and care for the earth, even in the Bible. Really, even in the Bible. Especially in Hebrew scripture. In the Garden of Eden story, it is said, we are actually the product of earth and air. Adam. Adam means earth. The dust of the earth forms our body, and the breath of God animates our bodies and souls. Humanity was placed in a garden to till it, to keep it, to tend it. Yet in the first creation account, there is often cited and misunderstood this command from God that humankind shall have dominion over the rest of creation. This has been misinterpreted to mean that all of nature exists solely for the benefit of humankind and to be ruled by humans. That in a sense we are above it all and to just go out and be fruitful and multiply as we see fit. But as the declaration said, we share a common present filled with uncertainty, and we share a common future as yet untold. We humans are but one of 30 million species, weaving the thin layer of life enveloping the world. As it turns out, this verb in ancient Hebrew, this verb have dominion, must be understood more as the sharing of God's responsibilities of caregiving, nurturing, taking care of the garden, or being co-creators. In Hebrew scripture, to have dominion, to be a good ruler or leader, you don't serve yourself. You're a blessing to all. Dominion should not be equated with exploitation and a me first, survival of the fittest attitude. You should be caring for all. That's a good ruler. And in ancient Hebrew thought, there wasn't a distinction of humans having a rule over nature or having a separate destiny from the rest of creation. God said to Noah, "As for me, I'm establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the domestic animals, and every animal on earth." God had a covenant with Noah and all that was and is on earth. In the West, it was the Greeks who introduced a separation between the physical and spiritual worlds, and Stoic philosophy in particular that introduced the superiority of man over nature. These two philosophical attitudes probably are what's gotten us into the trouble we're in. In the Western world, the privileged have tended to place themselves at the center of the universe, being of supreme importance, and all the rest of the world should be grateful for them, for their success and industry, and pay them homage. Yet this flies in the face of the ancient, of the first peoples, and biblical celebration of all of creation and the intrinsic worth of each part of creation, separate and apart from the usefulness to humans. Within Hebrew scripture, we find evidence that the ancients were concerned for conservation and equity within the community. This probably wasn't discussed much when you were growing up Christian in the church, was it? You might have not heard about these stories. Maybe though, I hope you heard about stories to take care of the poor and the orphans and the widows. We don't know if it was ever actually done, but ancient Hebrews were to observe a Sabbath for the earth. Let the land lie fallow every 7 years, yielding whatever was produced naturally. For 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield, but the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, so that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the wild animals may eat. Every 50th year was a jubilee. Not only was the land to lie fallow that year, yielding whatever fields produced without tending, but hereditary land was to be returned to the original owners, and debts were to be forgiven. The recording of these laws in Hebrew scripture indicate even in ancient times it was recognized that overworking the land could be detrimental. They recognized the strength and the well-being of the community depended on the health and well-being of each member of the community, not just the privileged landowners. The return of land and forgiveness of debts prevented the accumulation of land on the part of a few to the detriment of the community at large. See, that's the thing. If just a few people accumulate, it doesn't help the whole community. It would preclude those inequalities which are produced by the extremes of rich, the very rich, and poverty, the very poor. This jubilee would afford a fresh opportunity to those who were reduced by adverse circumstances, and everyone could begin again. In this practice, there is a recognition that our respect of the land is somehow interrelated with our treatment of people. A recognition that I hope we've rediscovered in our own time. How often do we discover the interconnectedness between exploitation of the land and of people? So often it is poor people, people of color, first people, the disempowered, who are the first victims of environmental poisons and natural disasters. The UU Reverend Fred Small implores that all environmental work is justice work. Automobile fuel economy is an environmental issue. When an Inuit fisherman has to import frozen seal meat because he cannot take it safely from a bay fouled by an oil spill, resulting from the rush to meet a soaring demand for gasoline, that's a justice issue. Recycling is an environmental issue. But when an African American develops lung cancer from breathing fumes from an incinerator in her neighborhood that burns recyclable trash, that is a justice issue. Organic food is an environmental issue. But when a Guatemalan banana worker becomes sterile from pesticide exposure, that is a justice issue. In Leviticus, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very edges of your field, or strip your vineyard bare, or gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the alien. There is an interrelatedness between how we care for the land and for the people. Biblical traditions have been blamed for supporting the notion that God is out there somewhere. but the sacred resides somewhere. That the sacred resides somewhere out there in heaven, like I said, and all that is earthly is sinful, evil, profane. Yet the ancient Hebrews encountered the sacred and miraculous everywhere they walked. They had a dialogue going on with a transcendent presence here on earth, a mutual, reciprocal, and dynamic relationship. The Christians imagined the possibility of the incarnation of the divine right here on earth in the form of a human, a lowly Jewish carpenter in a land occupied by an oppressed foreign power, or an oppressive foreign power. Certainly, we find voices within the Bible that speak to encountering the sacred right here on earth. John Revington notes, if the places we inhabit remain mere acquaintances, our lives are impoverished every bit as much as if we never get close to the people we live with. Where is the hope in this environmental crisis of our times? Perhaps this intimacy Revington speaks of is the secret. What does it mean to really love and be in relationship with the earth? Interdependent. As Unitarian Universalists, we say the hope lies in the recognition, celebration, and the respect of the interdependent web of all existence, of which we know we are a part. We are caught, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, in a network of mutuality, which means we are not alone. The hope lies in our learning more, speaking the truth about, and really living out of this interdependence. How might we behave? What would we really do if we saw the sacred, the inherent worth and dignity in all of creation? If we embrace the world as a member of the family, as a precious loved one? Sometimes in principle, but as much as possible in concrete ways. What are the ways we can create true bonds of intimacy and love with others, the land, all that is? What if we envision ourselves as of the earth and animated by the breath of spirit? Her name is Ruach, or Shekinah in Hebrew, or Sakina in Arabic. May we feel at home again on earth, in our bodies, minds, and spirits, caring for each other and the earth as one interdependent family and people. I commit to the earth because I am the earth. The waters of the earth make up most of my body and flow through me. The air and winds of the earth flow through me. I carry the DNA of ancestors, traces of their lives, their diseases, and good genes flow in my blood. I cannot turn an eye to the interdependent nature of all that is. It's right there before me. Let me hear the earth song of the rush of wind and water, bird song and buzzing of insects soon. May I commit to a new story of co-partnership with the earth, rife with rituals of creation and connection, as opposed to competition and unchecked consumerism. A poem from Denise Levertov. But we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How could we tire of hope, so much in the bud? How can we desire fail? How can desire fail? We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, not as oppressors. Surely our river cannot be hastening into the sea of non-being. Surely it cannot drag in the silt all that is innocent. Not yet, not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended, too much hurt we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the common or communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in the bud. As the Declaration of Interdependence concludes, at this turning point in our relationship with Earth, we work for an evolution from dominance to partnership, from fragmentation to connection, from insecurity to interdependence. Let us love the earth. May it be so.
This is the time in our service that we usually accept the offering. You may go to our website or contact our finance manager at fm@firstunitarianottawa.ca to find out how you might keep up with your pledge or make a donation during these times. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. Let us sing hymn number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning.
I'm joined by William Harash. Morning, Will.
Morning.
He's going to extinguish the chalice for you. As he extinguishes the chalice, I read these words from the indigenous Ute people of North America. You can find this in our hymnal. Earth, teach me stillness, as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me caring, thank you, Will, as parents who secure their young. Earth, teach me courage as the tree which stands all alone. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me regeneration as the seed which rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep with rain. May it be so. And let us sing, Spirit of Life. Go in joy, go in peace, go in love. Happy Earth Day this week on Wednesday. I can't believe it's 50 years old. Nothing in my life should be 50 years old. I don't want to tell you how old I was when Earth Day first began. Go in peace, go in joy, go in love, and may all be well.